Chuck Schumer has a big decision to make. Is he going to cast a vote to keep the government open, or is he going to be blamed for shutting it down?
Democrats' refusal to get on board with the president's agenda could send Washington into a spiral. Will the opposition choose to save the funding bill or shut down the government? Right now, it looks like the latter. So watch this story by the hour now. We are on it. I'm Bill Hemmer live in New York. Hello.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Good morning. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsrooms. For anyone who saw the tease, we both had vanish mode on Instagram, but we didn't know why. Yeah. It's now fixed.
And we didn't know how it happened
or anything like that. But we do know this. Yes. Congress has until Friday at midnight to fund the government. Republicans need at least 8 Senate Democrats to back their bill, and right now they've only got one. That is John Fetterman. The GOP accusing Democrats of political gamesmanship.
The threat of government shutdown, they're using it as some sort of attempt to wrestle power away from the president of the United States.
Americans will witness them attempt to shut the government down. And if a shutdown happens, the Democrats will own it.
This wild, reckless, far-left, progressive Democrat Party of today, they don't represent the American people. They're fighting against the will of the American people.
So as of now, Senate Democrats are not budging. They say Republicans drafted the bill without any of their input, despite not having the votes to pass it on their own. That is a far cry from about a year and a half ago when Democrats called shutdowns a non-starter. Watch.
The last thing the American people want to see is another unnecessary and painful government shutdown. Democrats certainly don't want to have a shutdown. And many of our Republican colleagues have likewise claimed they don't want to see one either.
Chad Pergram is on Capitol Hill with more. Hi, Chad.
Dana, good morning. A government shutdown could hinge on whether Democrats are willing to break a filibuster on the GOP's stopgap spending bill. Democrats say they want to vote on their own interim plan, which would fund the government through the middle of April.
I want to vote on the 30-day CR. I think it's 28. Okay. The 1-month CR. That's what I want to vote on.
But would you vote for cloture to get on to a debate?
I haven't made a decision about that. I have not made a decision.
Senator, for the
Pennsylvania's John Fetterman is the only Democrat willing to publicly support the GOP plan, and there's at least one Republican who is opposed to the GOP bill.
If you vote for this spending package, I think you're essentially voting for a spending pattern that will lead to a $2 trillion deficit. So I'm not for a $2 trillion deficit, so I won't vote for this.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says Republicans lack the votes to terminate a filibuster on their own plan. Republicans need Democrats to help. That's why the GOP is ready to blame them if the government shuts down.
Now the ball is in Senate Democrats' court. Do they want to shut down the government, or do they want to keep it open and funded for the American people who need this government to continue moving, to continue building on the momentum President Trump has created? It's up to them.
They need 60 votes to end the filibuster. With Paul voting no, they need at least 8 Democrats to crack the filibuster. Republicans could pass the bill with a simple majority. And hey, it's only Thursday. Sometimes they resolve these issues at the very last minute.
Especially when they haven't had a recess, and they very much want.
They have not been out this calendar year, and there have also been weekend sessions. So this will be decided by the most powerful people in Washington.
Yeah, maybe by the time of we get to the 5. Thanks, Chad.
Thank you, Chad. Mary Catherine Ham joins us. I'm Kate. Good morning to you. Sky's fallen. Better run now, as we call it, the media montage. Give it a listen. This is what is being said in the land of Chad.
I mean, what's coming out of Washington would scare the living bejesus out of anybody, independent, Republican, or Democrat. This administration is in total meltdown.
Our angry teenage years, right? And what do you do when you have a teenager who's threatening themselves and others? You just try to get them through this period alive.
So what we're trying to put together here, House Democrats are on this 3-day retreat. And Senate Democrats were in a 2-hour meeting the other day on the Hill, and apparently you could hear the shouting from outside the room. Mm-hmm. So it's obvious that they've reached a point where they're not quite sure what to do. And at midnight Friday night, we may see the results of that indecision.
Yeah, look, they don't know what to do, and I'm somewhat sympathetic because I've watched Donald Trump as a political figure for all these years now, and I don't know how you fight him. He has a certain sort of political jujitsu that he can pull, where right now Democrats are looking at this CR, which was basically a status quo from the Biden years, more or less, that was agreed to at that point, and they're like, we can't vote for that because Donald Trump wants it, but if there's a shutdown, which I do think they will be blamed for, which is not good politics for them, guess what happens? Donald Trump and the OMB get to be in charge of deciding who is non-essential in the federal government, which is exactly what they're very much enjoying doing right now. So I'm not sure how they get out of this pickle, and that is why they are all yelling at each other.
Here's some headlines also that are frustrating, I think, for Democrats. It says, CBS News, why experts say low gas prices could be a sign of economy in trouble. Egg prices are finally falling. They're about to spike again. And who should get the credit for the fall in illegal border crossings? But in 52 days under President Trump, inflation is down, just a tick, but it's down. Gas is below $3 a gallon. Egg prices are actually falling. Border encounters have plunged. We're going to have more on that later. Mortgage rates are declining. And we might see, hopefully, a peace deal in the Ukraine-Russia war. So it's almost like they're shouting into the wind, and shouting more and cursing more into the wind is not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think that the alarmist tone of Elizabeth Warren is the thing that soothes the souls of American voters. I just think they're kind of fed up with Washington, and they don't mind Trump having some runway to do what he's doing. He's had massive victories on the border, which is a huge thing people wanted. When it comes to cost of living and inflation, these numbers are some very good news for him because it does look like progress is being made. He wants to unleash energy. You've got the gas prices coming down. These are all good signs. He does walk on a tightrope when it comes to the tariff stuff, because if people feel short-term pain and don't get to the long-term gain that he's promising quickly enough, that could be politically perilous for him. That is something that people will make him pay for. He says, I want to remain flexible on this, which means, as it always does, he's in a negotiation full time. But I do think he runs some risk in that area, and some of the polling numbers show that.
What you're saying is that Democrats don't have a lot of targets. And maybe this budget deal is the best thing they've got to shoot at right now.
Well, and their voters demand that they shoot at it, no matter what the target, which is not the way to hunt. It's not a great plan. And NPR, I was just reading this morning, called it an unprecedented assault on the workings of the executive branch. Remind me again, who's the head of the executive branch? It is the executive that the American people elected. So I think they're running into a wall with that messaging as well.
Mary, MKH, I always like to ask you about what the moms are thinking. And so Elizabeth Warren, in that montage, she's focused about the Department of Education and that this is a code red. And why don't they ever have a code red when you look at the test scores of American children? And I'm wondering what you're hearing about the possibility of shutting down the Department of Education.
Well, I think during 2020 and 2021, up until 2022 in major metro areas, when teachers unions kept kids out of school to get their ransom money, Randy Weingarten leading them, a lot of moms learned that teachers unions and school boards might not be their allies, and in fact saw themselves as adversaries. There is not public trust. You might see a theme here from the past 8 years. There's not public trust for those entities anymore. So when you hear the Department of Education, you're going to lose all your great services, a lot of people go, which services? Because my school was closed for 2 years and I had to fight to get it open. And the Department of Education and my local school board was calling me a fascist for trying to get it open again, or a racist for trying to get it open again. So a lot of trust has been lost because they have overseen this failure that you see in the National Report Card just recently, and they were never mad about that. They weren't mad about keeping kids out of school when we were all yelling at them, this will hurt those who are already struggling, and it did. So a lot of parents took matters into their own hands, and I do think that they're on a more solid ground with the Department of Education cuts for that reason.
Yeah, it gives me, I just have the sense that they are just, again, they're just hitting a discordant note, right? It's like something's off when it comes to what their instincts are, and we shall see if they cave on this shutdown. I think they will.
Yeah. We'll see. MK, thanks. Nice to see you today.
Have a good one. Good luck on the potty training.
Love it.
Homeland Security officials are accusing the Biden administration of misleading the public on border numbers. So by counting migrants that were processed and released as ICE arrests. That doesn't sound right. Brooke Taylor is live in Dallas, and she has much more. Hi, Brooke. Good morning.
Hi, Dana. Yeah, those senior leaders with DHS and ICE took time to speak to reporters, and they basically accused the Biden administration of what they're calling, quote, cooking the books and lying basically to the American public about how many illegal migrants they actually arrested. I want to show you what the acting ICE director here, Todd Lyons, had to say about this. He said, quote, ICE found tens of thousands of cases that were recorded as arrests when in fact the illegal aliens were simply processed and then released into American communities. The Biden administration reported more than 100,000 arrests in fiscal year 2024. But the senior leaders say the numbers are deceiving. And that is because the majority of these arrests are what's called pass-through arrests, meaning they pass through ICE, then were just released into American communities pending those immigration hearings. Now, we've been trying to reach out to former DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas to get his response to these claims. We have not heard back, but this is what he had to say about illegal migrant arrests when he was pressed during a White House briefing back in 2023.
I want to be very clear. Our borders are not open. People who cross our border unlawfully and without a legal basis to remain will be promptly processed and removed. We removed, returned, and expelled 1.4 million people last year. Ask those 1.4 million people if they think the border is open.
Meanwhile, the senior ICE officials say arrest numbers under the Trump administration do not include any pass-through arrests since them ending this catch and release policy. The senior officials say that they're fully enforcing immigration laws, unlike the last administration. Now, during President Trump's first 50 days in office, ICE arrested 32,809 illegal aliens. Of those arrests, senior officials say 14,111 convicted criminals, 9,980 pending criminal charges, the remaining 8,718 in the United States illegally. Now, I have been pressing those ICE and DHS officials to get numbers on how many of those illegal migrants arrested have actually been deported. We're told they're working on getting those numbers for us, Dana.
Okay, keep us posted, Brooke. Thanks for the update.
So now